It's supposed to give you this name. Be sure. So you can now do any ls l. So let me close it. Oh, oh, I logged you out. Oh, are you using Git terminal? Okay. Yes. Oh, no, this is not the one you created. It says 49 minutes. So because you used RM, sorry, because you use RM immediately deletes the container. So remove the RM and try it again. So give it your name. Remove the RM because RM will immediately delete. You can open another tab. Docker PS. So you can see use the chosen name. This was just created. So if you want to give it your own personal name, the reason why this name is useful is that when you okay, we'll get to that section. We'll get to that. Uh, yeah, yeah, okay. This is just to create the shell command. Okay, yeah, I think I see my mistake here. I should have included this RM. Should be have it here. But I just wanted to show you can give it a name. This name is useful when you are creating networks. So if you want to create to connect to a terminal, it's through this name you will use to connect to it. Yeah. You're welcome. Yes. So when you close, yeah, you're still in the container. Yes. I- yes. But we are about to move on to the next session. Yeah. Okay. So now, okay. Okay. Or we can talk later. Yes. So the class is continuing now. Please let's settle down. Hello. Please let's. Okay. So in the first practical session, you can see we used some images like Ubuntu Alpine. These are images that were created by developers like us and uploaded to a repository. And I can see some of you asking me questions that, okay, what's the point of this image? How can I run commands on this image? What do I do with this image? So to do something custom with these images, you create your own image. So to create an image in Docker, we use the file name Dockerfile. So from this point on, we'll be trying to build our own custom images. So this shows an example custom image built for a Node.js application. I just want you to see the way it looks like before we go to each step. So we'll be going through each command. You see from, env, work there, copy. So, but this is the way it looks like. We can see it's using a base image. From is used to denote, okay, this is the base image. Since it's a Node.js application, it's a Node.js in which Node has been bundled on top of Alpine. Alpine is Ubuntu, a stripped down Ubuntu. So Node has been installed on top of Alpine. So we are using Node with the tag version and the Alpine version. So the next one says the environment variable. Work.dir sets the working directory. Copy means copy for my host machine, the folder I'm in my host machine, copy that file to the current working directory, which is /app. So if you want to run your own custom commands on a Docker image, use the run command. So we are running this command. So this in Node.js, what this means, install all dependencies. We are exposing a port so that we can listen to network requests from that port. So copy means copy all files / in this current directory into the working directory of the container. And we're running a final command, which is npm run build. It means build this current application, build it. And the final command is the default command. So when you started your Ubuntu image, it has a default command of bash, means start the terminal. So for us, in our case, the default command is npm start. It means when you run this command, the first thing to be executed is npm start. So we'll be moving to each commands from to env to work there in the next slide. So the first command we have is from. So the from instruction initializes a new build stage. So I've been talking about Ubuntu. So the from command is used to denote the base image of Ubuntu of your Docker file. So if a Docker file or a Docker image must always have a from instruction, and the base image must be a valid one. So in case you have several different phases, you can have a builder phase. Probably you want to have two different blueprints in your Docker file. You can use the as keyword. We'll be seeing an example of that later. So we have examples. You can use from Alpine. Alpine is an Ubuntu image from Node.js 16, Alpine 3.1, which is another base image, and BusyBox, which is another Ubuntu distribution. So the first thing you have in a Docker file, which is what we use to create a Docker image, is your from command, and you must specify a base image. Ubuntu, Alpine, could be Python bundled with Ubuntu. You could BusyBox and what have you. So if you want to learn more about the Dockerfile reference, you can visit this link beneath. So I don't know if anyone has questions from this slide. Any questions? So if you want to run commands on your if you want to execute any command on the base image, you use the run command, and we can see the different form. So the run instruction will execute any command in a layer on top of the current image. So all the commands you put, it will execute it on a layer on top of the image. The resulting command, the resulting will be committed in the image for the next step of the Docker file. So you can see in the first image I showed, we can see a run command. So this npm install will install all the packages on top of the base image, making it available for the next step in the Docker file. So we can see different example. as I just showed, npm install. If you want to echo hello, this is the command. Yeah, if you want to source the bash RC, probably you did something, you changed some configurations in the bash RC file, you can use this command. So you can run any Linux command using the run command. So we'll be seeing examples of this in our practical section. So workdir is mainly used to set the working directory in your Docker file. So let's say I want to have a dedicated folder for running a program. So I'll use the workdir. So I'll specify the path. And when I specify this path, every subsequent command will be run based on that current working directory. It's just used to set the current working directory of your Docker file. So let's say your application needs a special port to run, like web services, they need a special port to listen to. Let's say they need a special port to listen to. So this is the way you use the expose command to expose that port. But that doesn't do the final job. You still need to publish the port. So to publish the port, you use it while running the Docker container. So this specifies the port on the host machine, and this specifies the port in your container. So first, I list this expose in my Docker file. Then when running the container, I must publish the port with it. So this makes my host machine on the loopback address to listen on port 80. Please, is there any question? Can I move on? Please, do we all understand what a Docker file is? Okay. Do you have any question? Okay, you were asking me how do we create these images, or what's the point of this image? Like for example, the Ubuntu image. So that Ubuntu image, the way you create it is using a Docker file. A Docker file is a text file. Let me show you an example. It's a text file, and you specify this command on the text file. So this is a Docker file. This is the way you create images. So someone must have written this kind of text file to create the Ubuntu image you used. So in this Docker file, you specify different commands. The first one, the very first thing is your from command, and is used to specify the base image of the current image. So most people use Ubuntu, Alpine. So in this case, we are using Alpine mixed with Node.js because this is a Node application. So the env, which we'll go into later, is used to specify environment variables. The workdir is used to specify a working directory. Run is used to run commands. You're asking me how can I run specific commands. So this is the way you run it. Use the run command. Expose is to expose a port. Copy does what it says. It copies from your host machine into the correct working directory, which is the /app. And the default command is the way you start, is the first command that is run when you start the container. So for example, when you start the Ubuntu container, what opens is a bash terminal. So that is the default command. It was written, the default command for Ubuntu was written as sh to start the container. In this case, we're having npm start. So this npm start is a script to start the Node.js application. So you can specify anything you want in that cmd command. Okay, so let me continue. So copy. So these are the various forms you can use to copy. You can have from the source. The source is the directory on your home directory, and the destination is the directory in your Docker file. So for example, in this Docker file, we've specified our workdir as app. So this means copy from the current working directory in my host machine to the current working directory, which is this /app in my to be created container. So the parts of the file and directory will be interpreted as relative to the source of the context of the build. So the context is the current working directory on your host machine. And the destination is the absolute path, which is relative to the work dir. So the work dir specifies the current working directory. It would be nice to understand these things because we'll create Docker files for various applications later. So we can see example of the copy here. So we always specify a base image, then we specify a working directory using the workdir command. Then we copy copy all the contents of the current working directory on my host machine to the /app, which is what I specified as a working directory in this step. So the next command file is the cmd command, and the main purpose of a cmd is to provide defaults for executing the container. So when you want to start a container, the cmd is the first command that is run, that is executed. So in the former example I showed, it is npm start, and in a Node.js application, the npm start means start whatever node application. Most times, if it's a backend application, it means start the running server. Start listening on this port. Let the Node.js application start executing. So there can only be one cmd instruction. If you put multiple, the last one will be selected. So now I have put the same Docker file, just in a way to explain it again. So if you want to create an image to do anything, run a Python application, run a Node.js application, run a Java application, you have to specify a base image. And to specify a base image, you use the keyword from, and you specify the type of image. Here I'm using Node, and this is the tag version. So this is showing that this is Node.js built on top of Alpine. Alpine is an Ubuntu distribution, a stripped down Ubuntu distribution. So that's the first thing you specify when you want to create a Docker image. Remember, I said Docker image is the blueprint for creating a container. So here I'm specifying an environment variable to be used by Node.js. Here I'm specifying the working directory I want all commands to be run from. So the working directory is /app. You can pick any directory. So here I'm specifying, please copy this file from the host machine to /, means copy it into the current working directory in the container, which is /app. So let's say I want to run any command on top of the base image. I use this run keyword, and this will run. So in the world of Node.js, this means once install all dependencies in this package.json on top of this base image. So that's what this run does. You can include any command here. You can put echo hello world here. Depends on you if it's fundamental to your application. So this means expose a port. If it's a Node.js application and you want to listen on a specific port, you can expose the specific port. Here I'm exposing port 4000. And copy. Copy means copy the content of the current working directory into the container current working directory. So the container current working directory is /app. We can see another run command here. This means run this command. Now you can see this is a command npm. Normally in Ubuntu system, you don't have npm installed, but because I'm using a Node.js bundled on Alpine, npm has been installed there. That's why I have access to npm. So this means npm run build. And in the world of Node.js, this means build this application. Take all the contents of the file, all the code you have written, and build it into a form that is easy to deploy. And CMD is the final command. This is the command that is executed when you run the image. So this means npm start. This means start whatever service that is installed. So we'll be going into examples very soon. Okay, this is another example of a Dockerfile. Okay, I don't know if the people on the Zoom platform have any questions. Any questions from people on Zoom? You can paste your questions on the chat, or you can type no questions if there are no questions. Okay. So we have another Docker file. So here we have another Node.js application. And in this time, we have two different phases. The first phase is the builder phase. And it is very, very compulsory. When you are building an image, you must specify a base image. Because on top of this base image is what all commands will be executed on. So here again, I'm using Node. Node is a JavaScript runtime and built on top of Alpine. So this is the base image on which every other command will be executed on top. So now I'm creating my current working directory. So any subsequent commands will be executed relative to this path in the container /app. So I'm copying this file, package.json. This is the file in the world of Node.js where we specify all dependency that an application needs. So I'm copying this specific file from my host machine into the to be created container. So in the world of Laravel, I don't know how to use Laravel. There will be a specific file where you copy the dependency. In the world of Java, I think it's Maven. So you copy the dependencies from Maven into the container. So the purpose of copying it is that you want to download and install. So now I'm running this specific bash command, yarn. Yarn must have been installed in Node. That is why I'm able to run this command, yarn install. So this will download and install all dependencies into, on top of, it will install on top of the base image node 12 in this current working directory /app. So now this means copy all other contents of the folder on the host machine into the to be created container, which is into the /app directory. So together with the package.json, which is the dependency file, you have definitely your source code, the code you have written to orchestrate a particular application. So this copy is ensuring it copies all other files in the directory into this current working directory. This first / is the directory on your host machine. This second / is the directory, your current working directory in your container. So we'll be doing some examples later to see how it works in real life. So yarn run build, this is to build the application into a format ready for deployment. So now, this particular Docker file uses two different phases because there are two different images. So this here, I'm starting a new phase. And from here means use the base image ng-inx. I don't know if anyone knows what ng-inx is. I would like to hear from the audience too. Who has used ng-inx before? Okay, please, what does it do? Okay, like, yeah, that was what the web server. So now we are building the application, and now we are now creating a new image on top of this. So we are using the base image ng-inx. ng-inx must have had Ubuntu or any other base image on it installed on top of it. or nginx installed on top of the base image. So we are exposing the port for nginx to listen on, because nginx has to listen for requests. So now we are copying the default configuration. Nginx needs configuration like the upstream, the downstream, all those things. So we are copying it into the default directory, which is always the etc nginx confd, to the default configuration. And you can see we are copying from the default phase. So you can see we are using different copy commands. Copy mainly copies from your host machine or from a previous. So this is from the host machine, and this is from a previous phase, which is the builder phase. As you can see here, the builder phase. So we are copying the content of the former phase, the output of this, into the folder where nginx will serve its files from. And here I put nginx has a default command. So this is another example of a Node.js Docker file. So if I want to save, if I want to run this container, so I'll use the docker run command, and to save the files in the usr/nginx/html, it will save this file. So we'll be running an example very soon just to see how it works. So before we do that, now we've shown how to create these Docker files, but how do we build it into an image? How do we build it into an image that will be used to create a container? So to build Docker images, we'll be using the docker build command. And the first one is the Docker file, which we just created. And the next one is the context. That is where the Docker file is existing. Which folder on your host machine is this folder? You know, this is run on your host machine, not in the container. So the Docker file is expected to be in the working directory where you run the command from. And the build context is the set of files at a specified location, or a path or URL. So this is where the part on your host machine where the Docker file is existent, and where you to do all these copy commands. You know, I included some copy commands here. For example, copy.nginx. So this nginx will be the context that will be put here. Okay. So to exclude files, for example, when you have an application, you install a lot of dependencies on it. So you don't want to copy those dependencies into your command, into your container. So to exclude any file you don't want to copy, you use the docker ignore file. And to save the image, if you want to save it on Docker Hub, you can use this command. So this is the your default command. This is -c for tag, and this is the repository name. So I think most of us has a Docker Hub account. So use this test. This is my own repository name. So this is the name I used on Docker Hub, and this is the name of my app, and this is the version. And currently, this is the context. Dot means use the current working directory. I think practicals will be better to understand this thing. Okay, but before we go into practicals, let's learn something about Docker volumes. So when you run a container, for example, the Ubuntu image that we executed, when you stop it and you destroy it, everything you created in the container is lost. Everything. Containers are very, they don't have any, you cannot save anything on it automatically if you don't define a way to save it. So the way you can save files or persist files is by using Docker volumes. So Docker volumes are folders on the host machine hard drive, which are mapped into containers, as you can see in the image here. This is a folder in my machine, and it's mapped into a part in my container. So when I create this mapping, everything I created in my container is saved in this volume. So anytime I destroy the container, the volume is still kept, and I can, when I restart it, all all the files that are saved are backed up in the Docker volume. So because this is very important, because if you have a database, for example, running in a container, the database has to have a volume attached to it, because when your user submits requests and you save the user data, if you don't back it up or if you don't store them in a volume, if by mistake the container stops, all the user data is lost. So volumes are very, very important in Docker. In Docker. So there are three major ways to create volumes, but there are two good ways, but the best one is the named volumes. Another one is the bind mount, and the difference between named volumes and bind mount is that bind mount is very synchronous. Whatever you change in your host machine is immediately updated in your container. But the downside of bind mount is that it doesn't work well in Windows. It only works well in Mac OS and Linux. So, but name volumes, these are assigned to the running container, and the way you create it is through the /v command. So I'm binding this volume on my host machine to this path in container. So named volumes are persisted even though the container is stopped and removed. So this is an example, another example of a volume. So I'm binding the feedback folder into this part in the container. So to list all volumes running created on your Docker system is to use Docker volume ls. So we'll be using volumes in our practical example. So the next thing is networks. And Docker networks allow communication between several isolated containers. Someone was asking me a question, can I have a group of Docker containers? So I told him, yes, we can have it, but they are all isolated on their own. And the way to communicate between these Docker containers is by using Docker networks. So Docker networks allows communication between several isolated containers. So let's say the first, from the analogy of a web application. So a web application has a front end, a back end, and a database. So let's say I want my database and my back end application to communicate. I can use a Docker network. So the Docker network will allow communication. So the back end can write into the database via a Docker network. So let's say we have this step and test services. First, we have the browser, and the browser send requests to our web server nginx. So it routes traffic that based on its configuration to the backend, and it also routes traffic based on the configuration to the front end, and the backend sends requests to the database. So this is a basic web application for a web service that we will be trying to Dockerize. So we'll be trying the things we have learned, how to create a Docker image with this test service. So this is a very simple web application. We'll be creating a Docker image for nginx, for backend service, for front-end service, and Postgres. So this is a way to learn. If we don't try, there's no way we will learn. And funny enough, it's very easy. Actually, it's very simple. I don't know if anyone has questions until now before we go on, because the next thing is practical. Please, if you have questions, ask. We are all learning. I also am learning. I've not learned everything about Docker and Kubernetes. So if you have questions, please ask, because we'll be trying our hands to put these different services into a Docker image and creating containers from those images. We'll also be creating a network to allow them communicate with each other, and be attaching a volume to the Docker database. So everything we've learned until now. So if you have questions before we go into the practical, please ask. Okay, no questions. So now we are moving into the practicals. Okay, question.
Can you come back to your last slide? Okay, I want to know if your database, Postgre database, it's your choice, or we can use another.
Okay, if you can use another
yeah.
database. Yeah, you can. The thing is that I've created solutions for this actual exam practical, but you can use any database you want, but you have to configure it in the backend application. You have to configure the URL for the backend to communicate with the database. And also when you are reading and writing from the database, like when the user submits a request for all information, you have to configure the SQL statements and all those things. So if you want to use MongoDB, you can't use the SQL statements with MongoDB. So there will be a lot of tax there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Um. So I think let's walk through one of the services together. Let's walk through one of the services together. Then you guys can try your hands on others. So um, in the link I sent for your practicals, you will see the multi-container folder. So here I have the backend application, the front-end application, and the web server. We don't create an image for Postgres because someone has already created the image for us. We just use the image. So let's try for backend to create the Docker file for backend. So this, yeah, I've sent the link for the practical. It's in the PowerPoint slides. Okay, I thought everybody has copied this link. It's the same as this that I shared earlier. Yeah, the GitHub repository. Everything is there. So to create the Docker image for the backend application, we can see the example here. This is just similar to what I showed on the slide. The first thing for every Docker image is to specify a base image. because it's on top of this base image, every other command will be executed on. I said in the first definition that containers are layers of stacked image. So the first image is the base image. And here we are specifying, this is a Node.js application. So we are specifying node, colon. Everything after that is the tag 14.15.4 Alpine. So this is showing that Alpine was used to build this current image. And I said that Alpine is a stripped down version of Ubuntu. Yes. So the next thing here, we are setting an environment variable for the CLI of Nest.js to use. Next thing, we are creating the current working directory that all new commands will be executed on. So yeah, I was saying something about copying. So here we are copying package.json into the current working directory, which is the /app. So we can find the package.json. Yeah. So this is the package.json that will be copied into the current working directory of /app. So the next thing, we install all dependencies. So package.json specifies all dependencies of an application. So we can see this. These are dependencies. These are dependencies. So you just specify all the dependencies. So all these dependencies will be installed on top of the base image in this current working directory. So if you have a Laravel application, it will have the techniques or the specifics of the way you install dependencies. So next, we are exposing a port, this port, so that if you want to send a request to this Node.js service, it will be sent via the port 4000. Yes. So you can see it's running npm. If you type npm in a normal Ubuntu operating system, it wouldn't work. But because of this base image node, so npm has been stored on this base image, which node has been installed on the base image of Alpine 3. So the way to think about containers, they are layers of stacked images. So we are creating our own image now, and we are installing all the dependencies in this package.json on top of this node image. Yeah. So this copy dot / is copying all the contents of this directory into the current working directory, which is /app. Verbose just means give more information. As it's installing, print out all the information, And we are specifying the default command to be executed. So this is npm start. Npm start is a command in the package.json. So we can see start. So this starts the application. So we will see the application start very soon. So this is the Docker image for the backend application. So we can run this. First, we create the image, and we run the container. We create a container from this image. I don't know if there are questions. questions. Questions on how to create a Docker image. The important things, the base image, specified using the from command. The next important thing, your current working directory, the directory in which all commands should be executed against, which you specify using the work dir. Then any dependencies you want to install on top of the base image, you specify using the run command. If you need the port opened, you specify using the expose. Definitely you want your image or your container to do something. So you copy all the content of your application into the working directory. Then the last thing is always to specify the default command of your container. I don't know if someone can come and try. Okay. I don't know if someone can come and try to write the Docker image for the front end application. It's very easy, like 6 lines of code. We'll definitely work through it together, but I want someone to try. Okay. It will be in the folder of your. Please, can someone come and join me write the Docker file for the front end application? Do you want to try? We will walk through it together. Okay. Let me just name. Yes. Hold on. Is this still sharing? Just have you used Node.js? So we are trying to create the Docker image for the front end application. And the first thing we specify is the base image. So mistakes are allowed. No problem. We are all learning. This is colon shift. Okay, you can use anyone then. Use the older one because the use 12. Okay. Yes. Next line. So the next thing is to specify. Okay, so it's specifying the base image. So node is the name of the application. Then 12.0 is the node version. The version, yes. Then hyphen Alpine is just saying that this is built using an Alpine base image. Yes. No, you don't need the environment for this. Well, the working directory. Work there, yes. You can use /app. So the next thing is to copy the no need. Okay. You copy the dependencies. Yeah. So you are copying the package.json from your current working directory on your host machine to /app on your to be created in your container. So what's the next thing? Yeah, install the dependencies. you copy the all the source code from your current working directory on your host machine to to the current working direction on your container to build the application. No, run. Or okay, just to show an example of how it works. Um, run the final, set the final run command. So cmd. Um, okay, it's better to put it in an array. Yes. No. So this is it here. That's brackets. Yeah. Yeah, square brackets. So in yes. Okay. So we've just created a simple Docker file for the front end application. So when we create such file, the next thing is to build it. Try to build it. Do you remember the command? Okay, we can go through it together. So to build, let me also show everybody. So to build an image, use the Docker build, the name of the Docker file, and the context. So we can see the command there, Docker build -t. Since it's in the context is your current working directory, you don't need to specify the Docker file. Docker knows to select the file named Docker file in that current working directory. -t means the tag name of your image. So you can specify any name. Yeah, you just specify any name you want. First, ensure you're in the directory where your Docker file is. So you should be in the front end directory. Okay, multi-container. Yes, then front end. -t. Okay. Then any name you want. No, just any name is okay. Then the context very important. Dot. So dot is used to specify the current direct folder. So try to run it. So now he's building the Docker image. So this is what is run turned into a container when you use the Docker run command. So you can see is executing it as a layer. So layer 2 is creating the working directory. Layer 3 is copying the package.json into the current working directory, which is /app. Layer 4 is installing the dependencies. So this can be applied to any areas that you feel Docker containers will work with. Yeah, the base is Node.js hyphen Alpine, built on Alpine. Yes, yes. So sometimes it takes some time because it's installing a lot of dependencies. Yes, yes. You have all the dependencies in this package.json file. That's why I'm copying it first. Yeah. Yes. So you will know the way to execute the file, to open the file, read all the dependencies and execute it. Maybe you create a custom script for that. But yeah. Okay, if you are running like a Java application, Node.js application, Python application, they already have well-defined ways of installing the dependencies. For example, in Node.js, all your dependencies is defined in your package.json. For Java, all your dependencies is defined in a maven.xml file. That. So when you are installing, npm already knows, okay, go into the package.json, read the dependency variable, and install all the dependencies listed on that variable.
Okay, then I build a Node.js project. So then I create this docker.ignore, the docker ignore. Okay, just because I don't want to, I want it to install on the container.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So the thing is that these node modules are always very heavy, containing a lot of tiny, tiny, tiny files. So it's possible to copy the node modules from your host machine into the container, but it will take a long time. But best practice is just to install it rather than copying. Okay, we'll go into that later.
okay,
So we just want to have a simple.
okay. So then when I create the container, is it just for my own, like on my desktop, or is it for?
Okay, you can also push it to a local repository or
Okay,
Docker hub.
okay,
So that was what. So you can create the image on your machine, and you can also push it to a local repository, which is Docker hub. So that is what this command does. So in this command, I'm pushing it to Docker repository. So this is my repository name on Docker hub, and this is the name of my application, and this is the tag I'm giving it. So you can push it to Docker Hub. And if you want to deploy your code on a cloud platform, it's required to push it on a public repository or a private repository, not on your system. You have to push the image. The cloud infrastructure cannot come to your system to read it. You have to push it to a repository, and the cloud infrastructure will pull it from the repository into its infrastructure and install it. Yeah. So now we have an image. You can run Docker images to view all the images. So check if you can see any name, image with any name. Scroll up. Yeah, so that is it. So we now have an Yeah. So we now have the kind image, name image. So when you have an image, the next thing is to run it, execute it. Do you remember how? Okay. Uh, you actually forgot something. You forgot to expose the port. Yeah, expose the port. 3000. Yes. So run and build the image again. So this is the port the application is listening on. No. I can show you in the application. Yeah. It's when we run it, it will show. Yeah. It's the default port used by React. So this front-end application is a React application. So when you run this server, it defaults to 3000. No, it doesn't. It doesn't show it. It's done by the React application. So we build the image. Okay. Yeah, yeah, then. Yeah, because you've changed. Yeah, you've changed something in the Docker file. So every time you change something in the Docker file, you have to rebuild again. So now it's faster because it has a cache of the former image. So the next thing is to run the image or create the container. So run. No. Docker run any name. But before you do that, you have to publish the port. You know, I said something about publishing the port. Yeah. So on this slide, so expose is the first thing to do. You are telling Docker that you want to expose this port, that this application will be listening on this port. But that doesn't do the final job. You have to publish the port. And to publish the port, you use the -p with the Docker run. So you first specify the port on your host machine and the port, your container port, which is 3000 in our case. Then you can give it a name if you want. And this last one is the name of the image. Yeah, so in your case, it will be any name. Yeah, any name you want. No, not the name of the port. The name you want to give your container. No, no need. Don't put. Do you want to run it in detached mode? Please don't, just run it. So -d runs it in detached mode. It means run in the background. What happened? No, you're making a mistake. Okay, try it now. So it's starting the application. So try localhost. Go to the web browser. No, just localhost. You didn't, since you specify port 80. Okay. This should work automatically. Uh, did you? Hmm. Let me check. I think there's an error somewhere. Okay. The application always defaults to port 3000 every time. So the React script always selects port 3000. That's why we chose to expose port 3000. Yeah. So if 3000 is used, it will change to port 3001. And that's the way it does. So let's debug the application together to see what's the problem.
For React, is it npm? The one for React.
Hello class. So we just created a custom image, build it, and created the container. Um, and we're able to view it on the web browser. So I don't know if everyone understood what we did, or we should go back to the beginning. Please, let's be honest here. Huh? Okay.
Why do you think the 80:3000 didn't work? First.
So you could see the file for showed NGINX. So I have NGINX running on another service. That's why that took precedence. So I had to use a port which was not in use for it to show. Yes. Okay. So this is the web application, a React front-end web application. So the Docker image for this application is what my gentleman wrote here. This is the Docker file, and this was built into a Docker image. This was built into a Docker image, and the Docker image was created into a container, which we see. Yeah. So this is the output of the Docker container currently running. Starting, so it's the development server for React. So the output of this container is what we can view on the web browser. So this is the React application. Yes. So again, I say we just created a Docker file, a custom image for a React application. We built it and we ran the container, and we can see the output of the container on the web browser. So I'm asking again, does anyone have questions? Did everyone understand what we just did? Or you need me to go back pedal, and explain some things more? I really appreciate it if there are questions. It'd be nice if everyone at least learn something about Docker. Please, questions. Questions, please. Okay. I don't know if anyone has any questions from the beginning.
This one was a JavaScript and a Node.js file. That's why the command was npm start. What if it's not? What if it's like a PHP?
I don't know about PHP applications, but I know they will have a way you start the application. I think PHP doesn't have a web server in it. You have to install Apache or Nginx. So you have to copy your files into the directory where Nginx serve files, and it's the Nginx default command, start command you will use as the CMD for it. Yeah. Please, any questions? I'm using. There's something in it. Go to the web, the GitHub page. So I'm asking again, are there questions? Anything about Docker that we've spoken about from the start? Okay, I just Do you have any questions on the theoretical part? Okay. Okay, thank you. Please, guys, do you have any questions on the theoretical part? No. Okay. Can I assist? Can I assist? Any questions? Any challenges? Do you have any challenges? My brother. Any challenges? Okay. Were you able to create the Docker file for the front end or the back end application? Okay. But on the theoretical part, do you have any questions? So, so let's all try to create a Docker file for the backend application. I just noticed the front end files didn't upload.
To build a Docker file, which command do you use?
I can show you. So to build a Docker file, you use the Docker build command. So please listen, to build a Docker file, you use this command, docker build, the Docker file you want to build the image from, and the context. So most times you just specify Docker build, the name, and the context. Context is the folder where your Docker file and your working files are. That's what context is. Yes, yes. So we can see an example here, Docker build. It has several parameters. One example is -t. -t means the name, the tag name you want to give to it. So now this example is building and then creating, giving it this tag name, test FEDGEN. So this is the repository name, and this is the app name, and the version you want to use. But you can use a shorter name if you don't want to upload it into Docker Hub. You can use the name to give it a name, but you must specify the context. I don't know if, so we showed an example in the practical section. Let me show you with an example in the practical section. So I'm quitting it. So this is an example. We are in the front end folder. We're in the front end folder. The front end contains all the files needed to build the React application we just built. So we use Docker build -t, then the name, any name you can specify, and the context. So means dot in Linux means, or Windows means, the current working directory. Yeah. No, it's a folder name. It's a folder name. Yeah, yes, it's just a folder name. I can show you. So this is a front end, it's a folder name. Yeah. No. So thank you for that question. Is there any more question? So after the lunch break, I would like to see on the Dockerfile each person created for the backend application. To see it, to create the Docker file, to build the image. After you build the image, to run the container and to view the output on your web browser. I'm also asking if you have any questions from the beginning, even like what a container is. You can ask from the beginning. Any questions? We can backpedal to that point. So please, let's all try to create a Docker file for the backend application. If you have any challenges creating the Docker file, you can call me for help. So it's time for lunch break.